All right.
Okay, welcome back for those of us who are joining us once again, and welcome to those who are brand new in joining us for the call. Today we got a very special topic, hotly debated, and as usual, Andy, kick it off for us.
Yeah, so our topic today is development versus winning. That's just the major theme of the topic. Of course, we can drill down in terms of what we mean by development and then the whole winning concept that goes along with this, as Paul said, hotly debated topic. So today we want to discuss your thoughts, our thoughts on development versus winning and how they coexist, or can they coexist together? So without going too much further, I'm going to pass it around to our partner, Tiffany, on put her on the hot seat in terms of defining maybe the topic development versus winning.
Okay, you want me to define development
And
or
when
winning?
you hear that, because we always say, Paul, in order for us to really have a proper discussion, we got to be on the same page of what we're talking about. Development is a very broad term, guys. So when you hear development, what are your thoughts? And of course, the winning aspect of the conversation. What do you think about with development, Tiffany?
I think development is more of the process to achieve a goal. Whether that's like a bigger goal or a smaller goal. Winning, I would say I guess that is subjective per se, because everyone has their own goals. What is a win technically?
So yeah, so let's go to Paul. I wanted you guys to open it because in my mind there was so many things flashing when I heard the topic development versus winning, and I don't want to be all over the place. So Paul, when you in your mind, what is this? Drill down what you think we should focus on when you hear the topic development versus winning. It can go in multiple areas, like Tiffany said, but your definition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm relating it more towards sports. People often are talking about the cost of winning, at the sake of development, or development at the cost of sake of winning, right? So it's more for me around this concept of, what do you focus on at what stages and what ages as part of, the development process. But like in any sport, in any competition, any combat, you're there to win, right? Yeah, you're there to have fun, but you're there to win as well. So, how do you balance the two? Well, what is winning? Obviously, winning is coming out as whatever you set the score or the goals of the game. You coming out on the side that is the team that did better of what the parameters or the confines of the game is. If I'm to score more goals than you, then I'm the winner. You gotta love always, last goal wins, right?
Yeah.
No matter what the score, right? So, why do people have this concept of winning, and why is it when you say last goal wins, people just go nuts and try to go all out to win the game for that last goal, right? Because winning means something. It's important to people. So it's important in the discussion to understand what we're talking about, but around the concept of sports and besting your opponent, so to speak, in the matchup.
Okay, so I think I agree with that, Paul. If we keep it sports related, then we can look at the development phase of being an athlete. Let's stick to the sport we love the most, we play the most in terms of soccer, football, right? And it can be applied to all sports. It could be applied to education. But if we keep it sports and we look at the development versus winning, this is the topic, Paul, as a coach that we've gotten into for a long time. And I'm sure you've talked to countless people, coaches, parents, likewise, probably Tiffany, on this whole, it's not about winning, it's about development. And then the switch flips at a certain age and it's all about winning, and no longer it's about development. And I think for me, I'll open up by saying they should go hand in hand, because I give you a quick story about my first time coaching. I've coached for over 20 something years, but when I first started, it was our oldest daughter, Akila, who wanted to play soccer. And we found a rec team to sign her up for. And of course, they didn't have a coach. So, of course, she's like, my dad can play, my dad can coach. So I got volunteered. I'd never coached before, but I'm all about winning. When I compete, I hate to lose. That's just who I am. I don't care if it's cards, I don't care if it's ping pong, I don't care if it's basketball. I'm always competitive. Once you say there's an outcome called, the stakes are to win versus lose, I want to win, right? Like we said, what is winning? So I'm coaching them and I'm talking about winning, all about winning, right? And these young girls that never really played. And one of the young ladies, Rachel, said, Coach Andy, my mom said it's not about winning. It's about how you play the game. And the other girls were all oohing and ahhing, like, coach, like, so I was like, hold on. I was like, okay, let me ask you guys a question. When you're in the classroom, do you try to get an A or an F? So they all unanimously said, A, Coach, A. I said, right. So let's put the word winning aside. And what I want you to do for me is go after getting an A on the soccer field. Can we do that? And so, guys, this is where I think things get lost in translation with this whole development versus winning. Because at the end of the day, whatever we value, we want to be the best in. I think people just associate it differently. Some people are sports centric, but some people are academically centric or whatever else. But in any aspect of where there's a value, people want to achieve the best. Yeah. So how do we do both? Is development, do you compromise winning when you go through this whole process of developing properly? Because there are some character traits, Paul. I know when we talk about coaching, you're developing the players with these character traits, foundational things for life. You're not compromising that. But then when you step out to go play the game, there's a result attached to that. So are you not supposed to play the win? Are you supposed to just say, don't worry about the score? And when does that become important? Because it does. Eventually, people lose their jobs, their profession, if they're not winning, right? When the stakes are high on the highest level, winning is all that really matters at that point. So how do you develop that mentality if it's not part of your development? I'll throw that back to you and Tiffany on that.
Yeah, Tiff, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear from the female perspective about winning versus development, right? Rather than us guys rambling on here.
I coached a middle school soccer team, and a lot of my girls had never played soccer before. A lot of them couldn't even afford it, right? So I think for me, being a collegiate athlete, I did have those big eyes of like, yeah, I want to take it all, I want to win. But with what I had, that's impossible. Like I was playing schools that had people that were, total travel teams and club teams that had been playing since they were younger. And this is what I had to work with. I had to make somebody into a goalie. And for those who don't know, I'm only 5 foot tall, so I couldn't even reach the crossbar. So goalie was not my forte at all. So I had to learn how to change somebody who had never even picked up a football to become a goalkeeper, which was extremely difficult. But by the end of that season, that girl was saving goals left and right. She was diving. Half of our field was actually on a baseball diamond, so it was in clay. There were short wins along the way. Did I want to win every game? Absolutely. Did we end up tying and we acted like it was us winning the World Cup? Absolutely. But through that, I learned that sometimes the smaller goals feel better than achieving those big ones. Because I think that, yes, there are people that do lose their jobs over, not achieving a certain goal, but also what tools do they have? I didn't have the tools to sit there and win districts with the team that I had, but I did have the tools to develop some things in these girls. And for me, that was a bigger win than winning certain games.
It's interesting because this is the argument that rages on. For me, development is all about setting your goals as to where you're starting and to show improvement, right? When you say you develop something, there has to be an outcome. And the outcome is the improvement in the individual person. So I always do things like this. I always do individual goals, unit goals, team goals. And then I also always try to attach it to a loftier goal. What's going to be our point of excellence? If we overachieve and we get to something, what is that going to look like, right? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So for me, I'm able to then pin the development along the way with also the winning. But for some people, it's still not good enough. I can tell you different teams over the years I've coached, and because you're not winning, all of a sudden there exits 8 or 9 or 5 or 6 players, right? And then you ask yourself where those players are going to end up in 2, 3, 4 years. And guess what? Time will tell, but time often tells, right? Nowadays, people they bounce around from place to place thinking they're going to get development. Developing something, it doesn't happen overnight, specifically when you're talking about sports, where sports are late specialization. people develop over time because you have to invest, and then, you know, as part of the bigger process, somebody's growing and people grow at different rates and at different times, and maturity is not all the same on your team depending upon the age. So we're talking about youth sports, grassroots sports, and you're developing players. Developing for what? Because I've heard that as an excuse a lot all the time as well. Well, you know, it's all about development, and the kid can't kick a ball properly, right? You know, it's all about development, and they don't even know the basic fundamentals. Nowadays, I've seen a switch in society whereby there's such a focus on individual skill on the ball, but soccer is not just on the ball. There's on the ball, around the ball, away from the ball, right? And a lot of the kids I'm seeing develop, so they say right now, don't have those skill sets, even at the highest levels. And the problem now we have more so in Canada, I guess, than other places, is that as the game has become more professionalized, everybody wants to be professional because they see it as an actual outcome to a goal. But back to what we were talking about previously in some of the previous podcasts, it's a very, very small number who gets to that. So if you're developing for that, your numbers at success are going to be very, very low. So what are you developing for? You got to set those goals, right? And if people are attaining success by how many players you put in the national team or how many kids you got a scholarship, right? When we know those numbers are very low in general anyways. And guess what? Before this professionalization of the sport, before they had all these coaches, most coaches who coached these teams who came from diverse backgrounds didn't have no coaching licenses, didn't have no big accolades and background, and coach teams and coach players that ended up becoming some of the best players in the world. Not all players who were the best players in the world were developed to the top academies and the top coaches and the top this and the top that, right? Talent develops every and anywhere. You have to provide an environment that allows that talent to develop and grow. And sometimes, yeah, they need to be moved out of that environment to better environments, but sometimes they need to stay within the environment because sometimes they're building other aspects beyond the soccer skills, right? So to me, it's multifaceted. It's not an easy answer, but a lot of the, you know, arguments I hear in coaching circles about development over winning or development or it's only about winning. I get that, but to me, it's kind of it's a bit nutty, a bit nonsensical, because I see both of them existing. If you say you're developing and your team never wins, you never teach your kid how to win, what's going to happen when that player who's supposedly a really excellent or better player has developed goes and faces much tougher competition and doesn't know how to win, right? What have you taught them? Winning is part of something that has to be taught as well. So it's part of the development process, right? So that's just my thoughts in general. I think that a lot more needs to be, you know, done or discussed around what are your goals for that development, but winning is still a part of that.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna pick it up by saying, Paul, I'm in agreement with you. I believe they go together. I think going back to what Tiffany said, what is winning? I think based on your situation, it's about goal setting. It comes down to me, development is personal growth and winning is goal setting. And so they do go hand in hand. So if you take that perspective of, hey, when it comes to development, I am guiding you and I'm creating an environment, but you got to go do it to develop. It is not the coach, it is not your mom, it's not the teacher. You got to go do the work to develop. If I provide you the environment, hence why, Paul, some of the greatest players back in the day were not coached and held hand, because you got to go do it. It's a personal growth process. With development, and winning is a goal setting mechanism. So when we shy away from, oh, it's not about the winning, you're setting kids up, because this whole life is about goal setting. And this is why the word, when I was, you know, really talking to these young ladies and they were like, Coach Andy, winning, it becomes somewhat of an intrusive word depending on what the context is. But the truth is, we set kids up, right? Because we have some environments, Tiffany and Paul, that says, oh, everybody gets a trophy, everybody wins. Is that really how life is, right? You know, they shy away from the outcome. And so my thing is always this, then don't play a game for a result. If winning is not important, take away. Let's not play the Super Bowl. Let's not play games for a result if it's not about winning, because that's the setup.
They did that in Canada. No scores, no standings. They did it up to the age of 13, and parents are hating it. No scores, no standings, right? Don't worry about the score. And teams are slapping teams 10 and 12 nothing. And don't worry about the score. Everybody knows the score. They keep the score, right? So at the end of the day, when you have games, I think, again, competition is meant to be meaningful and balanced. When you have teams slapping teams, who wins out of that? What development's happening there? A guy can run around a guy easily and slap goals in, right? But like you said, it's funny you even made that comment, like, you know, against that, because that's something that we've had within our soccer landscape now that was brought in years ago around long-term player development that's now kind of sweeping the world. Not to say I agree or disagree, but however, I don't necessarily agree with the no scores, no standings. I agree with it at certain ages or certain things you play for, but the kids need to have meaningful competition, right? And I get it's a response to parents and coaches who are overzealous or being a certain way towards the kids and stunting some of their development, as they say. But again, what about the good coaches who know what they're doing and have done a good job and who know how to balance, right? And what they're saying in society is we don't know how to do that, Andy. You know, back to your point. No scores, no standings. You can't tell the kids that they won a game. Back to your point, but yet you're busting someone's tail and you get them 6 and 10, right?
Yeah, but Tiff, jump in, right? Because going back to what you said, Tiffany.
Okay.
There's outcomes. You still, I don't think you didn't set a goal to win, but you set a goal, let's call it a realistic goal, to look at where they are and where you can take them. But you were still driving them to succeed, Tiffany. And that is the key to this whole winning compass, right? They gotta improve, because if you take that away, what's the incentive to do things and strive for excellence is my point. If we take away the whole winning conversation, as Paul just said, healthy competition, however we want to spin it. But I think it sounds good to say, oh, it's all about the clubs, Paul. Oh, we all about player development, because it really is a nice narrative to sell to parents and everyone, because we're not going to compromise the kids. But these are the same clubs that when they have tryouts, they discard kids and get the better kids that showed up. And all of a sudden, the kids that they were developing, you know, what happened to them? Oh, they're not good enough. So how are you about development if you're discarding kids during tryouts to bring ringers in to quote unquote go win state cup? So this is the hypocrisy that we live with the development versus winning. But Tiffany, I hope I didn't throw you off, but your thoughts on going back to you made a comment about where your girls were and where they ended up, but you still, I guarantee you, Tiffany, with your competitive nature, you're pushing them, and with time, they'll be winning. You weren't not pushing them to the mark, but you wanted them to understand how to maybe praise progress along the way and not be deflated because they didn't get the actual results of the win. But you were still, to me, marching towards this winning conversation.
Yeah, you know, my father-in-law used to always say that football is life, and I strongly, strongly agree with him. There are so many aspects of soccer that mimic the aspects that we need in life, and we would have this conversation all the time. And for those girls, I coached them for 3 years. So, like I said, if you can kind of understand, they were a Title I school, which basically means that they had at least 98% of my kids were on free and reduced lunch. And so, as I had said earlier, like half of our field was on a baseball diamond. So that should just kind of tell you where we were. So a lot of these girls needed, you know, development in life as well. So having them understand how to persevere through things, which we talked about before, having them understand that like you may not be able to do something right now, but if you work towards it, we can get there. So those goal setting conversations happen all the time. Getting them to understand the game. And through those 3 years, like we developed and we started to win certain games. Yes. I think that when I personally look back on my own soccer career, I really enjoyed the development piece way more than the wins. And this is coming from someone who has won national titles in college. So that piece, like, yes, the winning is super nice. But when I look back on my career, like I value those private lessons that I had. I value the hard work that I put in alone. I value the practice times that we had and those development pieces that make that win so much sweeter. I think that what kind of gets lost with winning is strategy of how to win. That strategy and how to use players that are developing and letting them have some time on the field. Which for me, like that was difficult to have to learn how to substitute people that, you know, I'm taking one that's not so great and putting on one that's even worse. Like that's difficult, but everybody deserves a chance. And like, if I don't, what does that say to this one kid? Because I'm, you know, teaching them principles as well as everybody does deserve that chance if you're putting in the work, right? So I think that something that definitely gets lost in the eyes of winning is like, oh, let's just put on our best player. And like, if you're not, you know, top 11, then you don't get time on. So I think the strategy kind of falls short, and that kind of says something about the coach as well.
Yeah, Tiffany, Paul, before you go, I want to ask something. Sorry. Why don't we throw in, I just want to throw in something, Paul, and then you can respond. What about this thing called self-esteem that's tied to results, right? In other words, Tiffany, the truth is all these kids want to succeed in something. And if their interest is not really in the game, those kids that are there that just, for the social aspect wouldn't really care about those results. But let it be something that they really value, and you'll see the difference in their attitude towards achievement of the results. And I think we have to look at, Paul, the self-esteem aspect of the achievement aspect and how kids view themselves when they're on a team or even as individuals. So she made some valid points, and I'll let you go and then I can respond, because I agree with giving them a chance to be a part of it, right? I really do agree with that, but it's still never going to be even, because have they put in the work to be like some things mandate even minutes? Is that really fair to the kids who doing this extra work and are really fit and really competitive, and this kid that's there just because the parents signed them up? I mean, is that really fair? It's a tough thing when you're looking at the mixed bag of the interest level, the competition level, and the preparation level. So I'm throw it over to you, Paul. I know I said a lot there, but I wanted to bring in the self-esteem aspect of this development and winning, and how you view yourself, which to me is as important as anything else in the development of a kid.
They all kind of go hand in hand. I'm dealing with those challenges right now. I coach predominantly with the teams that I have under 15, under 16, and under 18, under 21, right? And the challenges, go with all those things you've been talking about. We won provincial championship, league championship, cup championship, and all the younger players who came from previous coach, they walk away. So then they'll talk about development versus winning, right? When you won everything and you're being developed, you know what I mean? So sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, right? They'll go to places and spaces that make them feel comfortable. The coach is going to tell them how amazing they are, not push them, not teach them. And then when they get by 18 now and they haven't learned stuff, they get that complaint. I have that as another one now, under 16. This parent came to me. We were supposed to have a short conversation, ended up being an hour and a half. I wasn't even supposed to have to practice there. So all my time has gone now into trying to discuss with this parent, help them be educated, because they have a best friend who tell them what to do and what it's supposed to be. And then now they're realizing that 16 years of age, their son is not at the level where he's supposed to be at. And they're saying that since he came into our club, he's lost all of his skill. The player doesn't lose their skill over 3 years. The player never had in the first place, right? You don't lose foot skill, like in terms of your basic ball mastery ability on the ball. So I have to explain to them what he's got to do in order to get to that level he needs to be at. But they have to be willing to put the work in. When I say they, meaning the player and the parents. But how many times do you think this practice outside and is snow and they don't show up? How many times do you think that, oh, he got a test the next day and they don't show up? So I always say that a lot of those kids, we just took them over just this year. It's only been, 3-4 months. How are you good teaching them anything about learning how to manage in life? You think that they say, oh, I'm not going to show up now because I have this test, if they plan to play at a higher level when you're playing for university, right? I mean, so what lessons are being taught around development now, even at that age? My point is the kids know how good they are. Sometimes the parents are fooling themselves. That's the biggest. If we had a magic wand and we could solve playing time, right, and wave it and parents would be happy, I think there would be no arguments. That's the biggest number one argument. It's always about playing time, because in their eyes, they think their little Johnny, because they paid some money, deserves to play for the whole game. The kids know how good they are or they aren't. The challenge I'm having now, we have a first team and a second team with my under 15s. We've actually got 39 players now in that age group, which is actually pretty big. It's kind of unheard of to have that many kids at this age and stage. And both teams are developing. The second team is more a development team, but I'm getting complaints from the parents. Whenever I don't coach, the other coach has them. Many times, some of the players only get 5 minutes in a game and 10 minutes in a game. So I got to go and speak to him now and mentor him on that. Look, you can't. Why are you doing that? You know what I mean? Yeah, I get the 15. You want to win the game, but and we know the level, and we know some of the players who aren't as good. I said to him, we all have strategies. My strategy is, as best as possible, make those kids be a part of the game. Don't wait to the last minute of the game. There's this philosophy also as well too around, you got to start your best, or you got to start your best, you got to finish with your best. I actually don't do that. People might complain and say, what are you talking about? We get into all kinds of philosophical arguments around that, because again, for me, I'm very religious. People may not believe in that, but I teach lessons as well, right? The ideas of grace, the ideas of mercy, understanding what those terms mean. If I give you the grace to start today, you don't deserve it, people are vexed. But guess what? People get grace everywhere in life. It might affect us, it might not affect us in the game, but I have to make decisions to make sure that I'm developing and balancing and teaching them life lessons. So I do that in various ways, or even around playing time, right? But my point is, what I've been blessed throughout the years is to be able to convey to these kids what their role is. At the end of the day, everybody has a role. Not everybody can be the same. Not everybody's a Messi. I tell them that all the time. Not everybody is a Ronaldo. Not everybody's a Pele. Not everybody's whatever. You got to figure out who you are and what you can contribute. No matter how good or bad you are, we all have something to contribute to the game. And the team needs you, because it's a team game. If it's not a team game, go play tennis, right? go play singular sports, go run cross country, go play golf, right? And it comes back to like what you're saying, Andy, self-esteem. And when those players have that self-esteem, you'll find that they're driven. They're truly driven, right? But at the end of the day, I think that players know at the end of the day who they are. I have one player right now I'm going through a lot of challenges with. Also, the parents come from a good background, high middle income, and the kid has got a chip on his shoulder, and he's always vexed, and he's talented as hell, really athletic, really smart too, but just doesn't want to put the effort in that's really necessary, and always, has a bit of defiance. You tell him to do something, he does something else. So one day I sit him down, I got so vexed, I said, "What is your problem? Like, what is really going on?" He goes, "Coach, I just hate losing." I said, "Okay, what do you mean you hate losing?" "Well, you said this year indoor is not going to be about winning the games we're developing." Right? I said, "Well, I didn't say quite that because I knew we were going to lose because of the talent level we're at and going in that league. But I had a lot of new players, so I had to kind of, balance all that." So I said to him, "Well, I never said we're not going to win. Yeah, but we aren't winning right now. And so it doesn't matter. But every game we're competitive. We lose by a goal or 2 goals." He's vexed as hell. So that's how competitive he is. But so much so that it affects him. He doesn't want to even show up and come play because we're not winning. So something there, again, is you got to deal with because not all players are the same. And like you said, Andy, that comes back down to the self-esteem. And this kid's a multi-sport athlete. He plays basketball, he plays volleyball, he plays soccer, and he's very good at all of them. And he doesn't even have to try. There's that natural talent, right? But not the smartest person on the field. I'm trying to get him to understand that, how to be smarter, how to pick your battles, how to pick certain decisions, how to pick your places. And every time he gets fouled, he gets vexed. He gets upset. Every time referees don't call his way, he's had more red cards, I think, in the last year and a half. And he's only, 15 than almost any player I've had in my lifetime. So he's learning as well how to balance and deal with this whole idea, back to your point, Andy, of the self-esteem, the winning, the development, you know what I mean? And on top of that, we used to have a good team, but a lot of the better players left because they said that they want to play at a higher level. That's what the structure is. Our club and our team is at the highest level. We're a competitive level, then they have this next level that's supposed to be higher. So all the best, better players, they leave your team and they go there. He wanted to go, but his parents said, "Absolutely not. You're staying where you are because this is a good coach. You will develop here. It's a great team. It's a good environment. Why am I going there paying plenty more money for, not to get into development, to worry about winning, and at the end of the day, they have nothing. I'm not going to do that." So he's not happy now because he has to work through all of that, right? So these are the things that we face as coaches, and we have to balance in terms of, like you said, Andy, self-esteem and individual talents around wanting to win. There are players you're going to find who they don't care. They just want to win. And other players, like you said, who just want to be there. So you have to be as grassroots coaches, or whatever you want to call it, have to be able to manage all these. So what is development? Development also is, I think, not just only the individual, because everything they talk about football is about individual development. I think also there's team development, right? You develop as a team as well, and you see the team itself get better and raise up to higher levels. And that's what I've done, but it's not done overnight. I used to always say it's going to take about 2 to 3 years to change the mentality and build a team. That's what I've always done. It's 2 to 3 years, and I turn that team into usually a top competitive or championship team. I've done it over and over and over and over. So for me, as a coach, you learn certain patterns of behavior, and every generation is different, and you have to adjust. But that's what I'm doing right now, and that's kind of the lessons I've learned.
Yeah, you said a lot there. Let me see if I can unpack a lot of what you said. First of all, I think for me, as we drill down, I always say as we get to the second half of our talk, we look at solutions to the theme. The theme is development versus winning. I think development, again, for me, should be some sort of personal growth, even if you're talking about the team concept, yes. But character traits, character building within that development is key, right? You gotta have some fundamental things in terms of what you develop in beyond the skills of the game. There's the skills of the game, and there's the character traits and development that I think can serve you for life, which is, if compromise for the winning is bad. But I also think that gets swept under the rug, and winning gets attacked a lot, Tiff and Paul, because it's an easy target to say, "Hey, yeah, you're compromising everything or all about the win." But the point is, why can't you do both? Because let's bring it back again, since we all educated to the classroom, nobody tells the kid it's okay to get an F.
Yep.
No, so that behavior on the field can translate into the classroom and vice versa. Why don't we see that? Why don't we see that if we make them not try here, if they're not trying there, don't complain, because that's a behavior that was developed and cultivated because, well, you didn't think academics is the most important thing, sports is secondary, so they cannot try there, but they must try here. But the player, the person is developing traits and behaviors based on where they are. So on the field, off the field, you should be striving to improve, in my opinion. You should be developing in the classroom just the same, so that you can get to the next level. So what do you say to that, Tiffany, as we look at unpacking the winning? We understand people do compromise, kids don't get playing time, they don't get involvement because the coach maybe just want to win. You put on quote unquote his best players and it affects them. But I'm going from the standpoint of we're doing the right thing. The kids are getting to play. They're all participating. But some of them just don't have a value system of, this is not important to me here because I'm not going to be a pro soccer player, but I'm going to be, a doctor, and that's important to me there. And they switch it on and off. That's what I'm addressing in terms of the development and winning.
I think it is centralized around communication, really and truly having that talk, and sitting them down and just being real. I think that the values have shifted a little bit over time. I think kids are now asking why a little bit more to authority figures, and how a little bit more to authority figures, and you got to be prepared for those, and that's okay for them to ask that. That's fine. It does show involvement, it shows buy-in, and then they can make their own educated decision from there, but let them, lay it all out for them. I think that communication is definitely one of the pillars of a foundation for a good relationship with anything. And so they're trusting you to help them, get to where they need to be after this or during this or whatever it may be. But, with all of what Paul has said, a lot of it was centralized around like communication. I told this kid this, I had to talk to him about this. And that's a big piece of it that I think is now being kind of like, people are kind of rolling their eyes at it, because like, why do I have to tell you this? Like, why am I having to have this conversation with you? People don't really want to sit down. They want to say, okay, I need you to do X, Y, Z. And this person just runs off and does X, Y, Z. But this kid's just stopping and saying, well, why do I got to do that? Well, I want to do this, And so that's where people are like, this is not part of my job. And that eye roll comes in and they're just like, they're over it. I think that coaching has shifted in that sense for sure. And so the communication is really key. So be prepared to have that conversation with that kid. I did have a girl on my college team who literally, she even admitted out loud, she very much so was like, I'm here for moral support. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to cheer you guys on. And the coach had that conversation with her though. He said, listen, you're not, going to be our next big star. We need your rapport and your support on the bench. And she took that and she was great at it. She would cheer us up. She would lift our spirits. And that was her sole job. And she understood it. And she was okay with that. There may be people that say, well, you're going to be benched all year. And they're like, well, I don't want that. Okay, well, here's your options. Everybody has choices. You can either walk or you can figure it out. So I think that the communication is really where all of this is really centralized. And like that kid you said wants to just win and he's frustrated about why he's not winning. Okay, we'll put it back on him. What are you doing that's actually, because mind you, you're part of a team. So that's the piece that you need to understand, that where is your role in this? It's not just you alone. You can't just go out there and win this by yourself. You have 10 other people that you need to rely on. So what are you doing, to help? Are you making the 1-2s? Are you making the proper runs? What can you do differently? It's those conversations that need to happen that get their wheels turning and have that buy-in. I think the buy-in needs to change a little bit.
Absolutely.
But before you respond now, Paul, you mentioned some things. I want to pull this out now and get us into another level of some sort of I won't call it a debate, but when we're coaching kids though, and we're developing kids, to say, well, you're not the next Messi, or you're not the next Ronaldo, you're not the next Pele, how does that impact a kid who has a self-belief that I can be special, I just need a chance? But let's say the coach is not seeing what the kid is seeing. And I have enough stories. Jordan is one of them who, when he got cut, the coach said to him, I believe you can be one of the best ever. There are so many incidents of world superstars now that somebody first believed in them and give them the opportunity, or else there would be nobody. So how do we be careful if we're telling a kid you're not this, and we have the authority as a coach or a teacher to determine how a kid perceive themselves, right? So how do we balance that, guys?
I think
So
you focus on what they are, not what they aren't, you know? Stop sitting here, but well, you're not going to be this and you're not going to be that. Okay, well, this is what you could be for me. This is what I need you to be for me. This is what I see in you. So let them focus on their strengths. Stop talking about their weaknesses in that sense and let them focus on their strengths and that how they can actually help further the team because everybody has something that they could give.
Good point.
It's a tough one. I mean, you know, we live in a world now where they tell everybody they can be anything you want to be, but you know, if you're not prepared to put in the work, the person's not putting the work. Now, it's not to say they can't get there. You're judging the person at all, but there's a requirement to get to those levels. Like in anything, I mean, whether we believe it or not, Malcolm Gladwell talks about the amount of hours you got to put in to be able to be an expert at something. Again, things happen in various ways, but if you know that person's not putting that time in, I think it's your responsibility to help challenge that person to help them understand what they need to do to become that. So it's not saying they can't ever become that. I never tell anybody they can't become this or they're not that. I just think we live in a world now whereby you see instant gratification. They see things on TV and they think because they see it, they can be it. You know, that's where it starts. You're 100% right. You got to see something or, you know, hopefully you see something in order to understand how to get to something. But at the end of the day, too, you have to be realistic. It depends on the age and stage too as well, right? Like a lot of coaches have killed players' dreams. I don't do that. You just give them honest assessment about where they are. If they ask for it again, I don't give things that people don't want. I don't go out and tell a player you're this or you're that. If the player's asking, hey, coach, you know, I'm soliciting your feedback. Here's where I'm at. It's your job to be honest and also help them. That's the whole point, giving them things that they can do to then get to that level because there's a certain amount of work required in order to get to that next level. But you are right, Andy. Far too many coaches have said what somebody can or can't be. Nobody knows. You don't know what somebody's going to be. When we're referring to these players that we see now, because we do live in a celebrity type status world whereby that's what they see. And they think, you know, we look at the highlights. The highlights are what players are seeing around playing the game. That's not how you play the game. You don't play the game through highlights, right? You know, so the highlights is a player taking on a ball and dribbling 10, 12 men. So, and I've had to have this conversation with my coaches. Do you stop a player from dribbling right from the back? Because they teach you, playing out the back is only passing. Not at all. I don't teach them that at all. If you have the skill and ability, you have the wantedness to want to do that, go ahead. But you have to learn about what success means now. If you get stripped every time you're dribbling the ball out the back and they go and score a goal against you, you know, pretty soon, you know, you got to figure out, well, something's not working here. So I have to do something different or change. And that's where the problem solving comes in. My reference was just, I think too many kids are watching too much TV and we have too much celebritism in society today, whereby they want to be that celebritism and not understanding what it took to get to that level. So that's where, for me, I try to help them understand in whatever capacity the amount of players that I've helped given opportunities to go across into professional environments and try them. And most times we found a lot of Canadian players, always the argument was the same thing in the last generation. They don't understand what it means to be in those environments, partially because they haven't. When they go there, they're shocked, right? They understand that you're fighting for a job. We're talking, of course, on a professional level now, and you're taking food out of someone else's plate. So they're going to come to hurt you. They're going to come to, you know, make sure that you don't come take their job. And a lot of players when I sent initially didn't understand that. That was always the report that came back, that they didn't understand. So I had to look at it, well, maybe I'm not doing something to prepare them properly for that next level if they want to go to that level. But where you're at now, for me, is different. I'm back down to 15, 16-year-old kids, where a lot of these kids haven't kicked the ball until they're a certain age. So again, having the dream whereby you think you might get to somewhere and you're starting very, very late, you know, I'm not saying I'm going to kill that, but if you're doing things that's affecting the overall team game because you think that you're going to be the next whatever, when it's far from the reality, then, you know, again, who am I to say anything to you? Yeah, I'm not saying you can't be a smart person or you're not going to be amazing, this, that, the other. But if you're doing something that I think is not where we're at and what is going to be where we're going to, I have to help guide and give person examples of what it is. So if they want to go ahead and do that, good, it's up to them.
Yeah, I think I like Tiffany's answer about when I ask, instead of you're not going to be the next Messi, you're not going to be the next Ronaldo, you're not going to be the next Pele. And I understand why now, Paul, you say that because of the work tied to becoming a superstar. So
and
you
maintaining.
Huh?
And maintaining.
Right.
It's not just become, you got to maintain too. That's another piece.
Right. But I think for me, I think I endorse what Tiffany said because my mentality as a coach is I coach very different. Development for me is teaching you to believe in yourself. Development for me is teaching you to believe in yourself. I literally teach when I start off with any team, believe first and reprogram their mindset in terms of the achievement mechanism. They go hand in hand. And then I drill down on the work. Now, those that wanted Paul will embrace this mentality in me as a coach. And those that don't want it, there will be conflict and there will be quitting. And that's a natural part of those. But I don't dwell on those. I don't tell them they're not going to become anything. I just set the standard for what it needs to be within our organization. And the same thing in the classroom as a teacher, right? When I was teaching, these kids had this thing about you calling them out, right? They would go on their cell phone while you're lecturing, and maybe I'm just this old school guy from the islands, I would stop and say, excuse me, put that away. And they look at me like, he called me out. No, you call yourself out. You have your phone out. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't just ignore it. I didn't just ignore it because, and then at the end of the semester, you'll have, Salandi is the greatest instructor in the world, and yeah, I'll never take him again. And I always say, I know who's going to say that. The one who wants to do the wrong thing in the classroom, and I'm not going to allow it. Same thing on the field, right? You got to be fit. You got to do this. But I said that standard, but I teach you to believe. So I think focusing on your strengths, Tiffany, is a very good thing because we can unintentionally suppress a kid by telling them what they're not. And I can tell you, if we look at the three names what was called Messi, Ronaldo, and Pele, let's go and look at the true story. Somebody had to know and he helped them believe in themselves, but facilitate them having the path to come with it. They didn't just do that because they were just the greatest in the world and they had no, Pele, look at this story. He almost quit. He was going back home. He was going back home. Somebody had to say, dude, okay, you can go ahead and quit, but, and then he came back. So, without that nurturing sometimes, you could end up throwing in the towel if you don't understand what the kid is dealing with, what the player is dealing with. So I think, focusing on what their strengths is what you said, Tiffany, and showing them how they can build on that, not what they're not, is a good way for development, in my opinion, because we never know. We have the authority, guys, as teachers and coaches to impact children's belief system. We do. And we should safeguard that with the right understanding of what are the words that we're saying to a player. What is the communication, to your point, Tiffany, if we're really about development? Let us leave them with something better, and it's up to them to take it further, not up to us to make or break them based on what we say. And I think too many coaches and teachers take this power and abuse it, in my opinion, because they literally favor someone. They didn't even have a real, I've seen coaches with no real rubric about why some kid is starting over another kid. It's just this kid they like, this kid hangs out in the office, whatever. There is no he's better, he works harder, he's more disciplined, and he gets to play. And that's tough to deal with as a young kid when you're in an environment where it doesn't seem to be fair at all. No matter what you do, this coach is not going to give you that chance. And that happens. That's real talk. So to me, development.
Sometimes you got to move. Sometimes you got to go somewhere else, right? Environment, you got to get the right environment for you. If it's not the right environment, by all means, that's always say anybody, if this is not the right place for you, perhaps it's not the right place for you. There's lots of other places to go. We have a culture of choice. That was the difference. A lot of us growing up in different places didn't have that choice. Now they have choice coming out the union, and they could always choose to go elsewhere, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So as we look to wind down, guys, because I'm the timekeeper as usual. I want to make sure we stay on time. We're talking about development. We're talking about winning. If you're just joining us, maybe you missed the beginning. We sort of define development as, an improvement path, a path from starting here, from A to Z. Let's say you're developing skills, you're developing character traits, you're developing the right attitude, the right mentality, and then we're talking about winning. And for me, again, as we go wrong, I think they should go together. I think isolating them is a mistake. It's a setup. It's destroying achievements, because winning is a goal, right? It's a goal. And can we really operate this life without setting goals? How do we accomplish anything? How do we live into purpose if it's not goal oriented? And so as much as we say, it's not about winning, how many people, honestly, if they look in the mirror, like the feeling of not feeling like they're the winner or they're the loser? I mean, why is the gambling industry such a massive industry if people ain't trying to win, right? I mean, these are the things that we have to look at and be real about and arm the kids in the right way, as opposed to attacking, oh, no, don't worry about winning. Or, this whole, it's all about development. As you say, Paul, and they can't even, there's no skill development, there's no progression in how they became better players. So, but they get hidden under the development umbrella a lot. Yeah, when people use that, it's like, hey, hands off, I'm about development, so I'm doing the right thing. Is that really the facts? I'm gonna roll it to you, Tiffany, and then to Paul. As you close off on the topic, what do you see as the way, the road ahead for development versus winning, development and winning? Do you think they go together? How do we navigate?
So I think that they do go together. A big piece of development and winning is responsibility. As a coach and as a teacher, I would always be deemed the chill teacher. Everybody loved Mrs. Romaine because I never for like late work, I would let them turn it in. As long as I hadn't put final grades in and submitted it, you could turn it in whatever you wanted. And I would grade it as is. I wouldn't dock any points. And so what that would do is throughout the period, throughout the semester, right? We would do a lot of the work together. It'd be super easy. If you paid attention, you could get it done. We could learn together. Cool. But you have those kids that are undoubtedly, they're gonna slack off. And at the very end of that semester, well, why is my grade this? Well, you're missing this and this, right? Well, what can I do? I'm like, okay, well, you can do your work. Here's a stack of papers. You could always get the work, but now you're playing catch up, right? And you have some kids that won't even, they won't do it at all, right? But you have kids that will bust their tail to get those papers in, but now you're doing it on your own. And now you're frustrated because you don't understand what's going on. But if you did it when we were doing it and I gave you the resources and I gave you the help that you needed, then you would have been on track, you would have been on time. So my big thing is a responsibility. You can always take the responsibility. It may look different at different stages and it may have different consequences. However, I as a person and as a coach and as a teacher, I will always give you all the tools you need. If you want to come to me and say, yo, coach, can you stay after a little bit? Or hey, can I have some pointers or some tips on this? I will always be there for that. But it's your responsibility. I think that helps that as well. And that's a big thing right now with this generation is that they're also a very big, like there's a handout aspect of things. They just want things handed to them and you got to work for it. And part of that work is taking that first step of asking for help. You need help? I'll be there all day, but that responsibility is important. And then that also pairs with the communication aspect as well.
But Tiffany, before I let you go, and their consequences though, I mean, okay, how do you take responsibility if there is no real consequence? If the work is late, it gets weighted the same as somebody who turned it in early.
Consequence is time.
Huh?
The time it takes for you to do all that stuff. Now you're doing it on your own. Plus you're doing it, all in one crunch. And I'm grading it as is. You would have gotten the right answers, mind you, if you did it with us in class. But now you have to do it on your own because now you're wasting your time and you have less time to do all this stuff because now your parents are on you too. It's not on me anymore. I put the responsibility all in their hands.
Okay, I think I missed when you said as is, as though you're saying it counts the same as someone who...
I graded as is. So whatever it is, if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. But why are you getting it wrong? I told you the right answer in class. You would have got this right if you did it with us. But now it's wrong. And now, yeah. So that, I mean, it puts the responsibility on them. And honestly, a lot of kids would be like, yeah, you had to try to fail Miss Romaine's class. But I still would have about a third of my kids would fail for like the year. I would say like a C or lower. But that's just human nature, I think.
All right, so Paul, it's on you. You heard Tiffany's classroom management, coaching methodology. This, because of the time, I want to unpack more there, but I'll let it go to you and hear your thoughts on how these two fit together and some road ahead advice for those who've been listening and maybe want to navigate this development coaching, development/winning, landscape that's so hotly debated all the time.
I'll just leave it with one word: balance. Right? You must balance the two, and they both are parts of the same thing, whole hand in hand. You know, without one, without the other, what are you really doing? You need to have both. So I'll just leave it as balance. You need to have balance in order to develop players. You need to have a balance of winning, healthy dose of winning, because people want to have memories based around things that they've done. There are some kids who never win anything, right? But what does that say? So at the end of the day, I leave it with balance.
Okay, short and sweet. Well, for me, again, I would say, for those who are listening to us, and thank you, Paul and Tiffany, they're very important topics. I think we have to take them into life outside of sports. We are sports centric, so we use the sports analogy, but development is going on in business life, in career life, in education life. Development is an ongoing process. I think once we are alive, we're developing, right? What is development? Isn't it a process of continuing to improve yourself, right? And learning new skills and new things that can help you navigate life, right? So again, some people have to go back to school because they were downsizing their job or whatever, and developing, develop new skills for a new career. So development is not an end point. I think, sometimes we tie it into being young and, you're learning something, but I think development is an ongoing process. And I think also this whole winning thing is, if we change the word from winning to achieving a goal, it should go hand in hand in terms of what you're going after and wanting to be the best of what you're doing to go after it. Yes, you can get the lessons from going after that more than even the result. And I think sometimes that's where people think, Tiffany, you said I got more out of the development than the actual winning. What you meant is you got more out of the process of going after, preparing for the competition. And that's truly what I think it is for us in life. It's going through this process of learning and developing and learning again and making adjustments. But at the end of the rainbow, we have this goal, this thing that we're going after. And all I would say is if we talk in sports and we want to attack the winning, then stop competing for a result, right? Like if we talk in this whole development, as I wrap a bow around this in football and soccer globally, we compare academies in different cultures and we don't understand the makeup of the structure. Yeah, they go into practice and developing because they don't have a game next weekend, every single weekend in a tournament to go compete in that needs a result. So it gives you time to continue to work on this skill development without the pressure of a result. But once you start putting kids, and we do it young in this country, into tournaments at U10 and it's a result you after. Nobody goes there and signs up to lose. Don't worry, it's about development. No, we're setting them up because the kids who pick up the trophy and the medals, the kids who lost is feeling something. They're feeling like losers. They're feeling like nobody. It's affecting their psyche, no matter what we say. You can say all day long, oh, don't worry, it's not about winning. It is about winning. That's why you had a result. You had a nice trophy for the winners. And it's crazy. They don't even seem to care once you don't win, right? Look at sports. The winners get it all and nobody's even asking the losers. Sometimes, no, they try to talk to the losing coach or whatever after the fact, but it's all about the win. And if it's a society growing up in teaching us that, how are we preparing our kids if we take away, oh, don't worry about it. But then at U14, yeah, it's all about it now. You have to win or you have to be the best to be on this academy team, to go to the pro team, to go to the college team. So for me, I think, Paul said balance is a good word. They go hand in hand. We are all agreeing on that. But my thing is development is an ongoing process. So it's not just when you're young. And if we embrace that and take the responsibility, I think of what Tiffany used, to develop, because I do think it's on you to develop. I really think it's on you. You can be guided, but I think development is an individual thing where once you're given the tools, you have to go use those tools to develop and learn and get better at what you want to be. And just don't let anyone, my last message is, Paul said it, if you have a coach that in your heart is not really a just coach for you. You seeing things where there's favoritism, there's nepotism, there's whatever-tism going on. You do have the right to choose to be in an environment that is going to help nurture and give you an opportunity, than be suppressed thinking, well, I'm just not good enough because coach said that. Because I just say be careful of all of us. We are very subjective human beings, right? We all have opinions. That doesn't make us right. The individual kid can believe and thrive. And we've seen these stories where you didn't get the chance, and then you get the chance and you become a superstar, right? And you win in Super Bowls. You know, you becoming a conversation about being the greatest. I mean, you have enough examples. Look at these kids as youth. They were discarded. You know, they didn't even get scholarships. So it's very important, I think, as teachers and as mentors, to push self-belief, in my opinion, and teach the kids to arm themselves with the right belief system to achieve the goals that they're looking for.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of our episode 6.
Yeah.
I believe we are at. Can't keep up.
Okay.
Development versus winning. And so over to you, Paul, I guess, or any last words, Tiffany, before Paul closes us out?
No, I think that was a great ending.
Okay.
Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for listening in. We'd definitely love to hear your feedback. So definitely, message us, leave a like, put a comment, follow us, whatever have you. There's all kinds of ways to get in contact with us and just be a part of the conversation. These conversations are going to be continuous, and we definitely love to hear from you. So be here next time, same place, same channel, same way you picked it up. Tie-Dye Talks.